GTT.
Not sure if your audio sounds professional? A sound check by George the Tech removes all doubts and explains the next steps. Audiobooks, podcasts, or voiceovers. For content creators, we do it all. New customers get 20% off their first service with coupon code XPTO.
George the Tech.
And so I would call people and go, hey, I've heard your ads on the radio. I just wanted to play you back some. And I would actually write a spot and play it back to them. And they'd go, 90% of the time it was great. A couple of times it was awesome. Very funny with I just need to pick up a check. No worries, man. Well, we'll send you one. It's like, no, I'm thinking I'm not going to get home unless you give me a check.
George the Tech.
Hey, everybody, it's George the Tech back again for another Trusted Partner interview. And this is not just any interview, and this is just not any partner. I'm talking with a legend, and he'll tell you why he's a legend in a minute. An old friend and an incredible talent and studio engineer, producer, and just a juggernaut in the voiceover industry. I've got today Mark Graue. How you doing, Mark?
Good, buddy. It's good to see you, man. Good. I was just thinking, how long have we known each other? It goes back to,
a long time.
Yeah, really long time.
But you've known a lot of other people longer than me. I'm still, in the grand scheme of things in the voiceover industry, kind of one of the new guys, but I've been dealing in the voiceover industry since 2005.
Right.
You go back a little ways before. So
yes.
I'd love to hear a short version of where voiceover came into your life. Was it always about voiceover, or was it really more about?
I was doing radio, and I had the cast of characters, which today would be considered very politically incorrect. The door would fly open, and the general manager would go, "My God, I can't believe you just said that. Apologize." And it's like, okay. And then it would be just meet with the consultants. It's like, let me get my stuff and put it in the car first because I know where this is going. So it was in Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, Oregon, Washington, San Francisco, although, doing that KFRC, even on weekend stuff. Ended up in San Diego and realized at that point that the radio thing was very unstable. So I actually started, believe it or not, with an old Tascam reel-to-reel. I had two of those, inserting stuff that way.
Yeah, a quarter-inch two-track? Oh
yeah. That's originally in the bedroom. It had these things built that would sound, so you could edit, the old edit all block and all that good stuff
on there.
Oh, sure. And actually had a phone in the kitchen, and in this, I took speaker leads with alligator clips, and I would undo the phone and clip it onto it, and that was my phone patch. And so I would call people and go, hey, I've heard your ads on the radio. I just wanted to play you back some, and I would actually write a spot and play it back to them, and they'd go, 90% of the time it was great. A couple of times it was awesome. Very funny with I just need to pick up a check. No worries, man. Well, we'll send you one. It's like, no, I'm thinking I'm not going to get home unless you give me a check.
Exactly. So you were basically doing spec spots and just putting them together and go, boom, here you go. What do you think?
Yeah, and that's kind of how it started. And then I BS'd my way totally into Cherokee recording, which was a big music studio down by Fairfax. And I had no idea what I was, when they were going, can you buy his tape at +3? It was like, does that mean it doesn't like that? I had no idea what the hell was going on. Ampex Grandmaster 456.
And you couldn't Google it.
No,
there
not
was
at
no
all.
And
so I actually got in a bit with Don Pitts doing demos for his clients, and I actually talked Warner Brothers into coming in. They brought Van Halen in with the whole band and all the girls with the black makeup and black fingernails and stuff.
The whole thing.
And brought their own engineer, and he's trying to patch an effect. And I go, well, man, if you do this, and he turns around in this room full of people and goes, I appreciate it if you shut your mouth and stay out of this. And it was like, oh my God,
wow.
There goes my career. It hasn't even started.
Smokes.
I mean, it was kind of, and so they did the spot. I think the talent was like Chuck Riley, it was the big talent back then, the ballsy. And they did the spot. It was like, it was just not impressive. It was like, it's Van Halen. Yeah. So very unkosher. I put together my own spot and stuck it on the end. And I had all kind of, Van Halen phased it left, right, and did all this stuff. And it was, the Ampex ATR 102s, and sent it to them. And they called them, they went, what is this? And they went, God, I'm sorry. And they went, nah, this is great. And then I had them for 20 3 years, and they would do stuff like they would go, Madonna's in town tomorrow. We'll fax over, the bio thing, do a show with her. We need a half-hour radio show, or we want just answers so the jock can do like she's in studio with them.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have dreams, and I've still got. In fact, girlfriend right now is trying to set up an exhibit at the Grammy Museum because I don't know what I've got originals of all these amazing interviews, and I don't know what to do with them.
That's awesome. That's a great idea. It'd be awesome. I just imagine going up to a big touch screen, right, and just being able to tap a screen on the screen in the museum and start listening in on but it's crazy.
Yeah, they're originals. I mean, there isn't any other. That's the one, when it's, oh my goodness, Brian Wilson and REM and, oh gosh, I mean, even down to like George Benson and Van Halen and, because at that point, Warner Brothers was Warner Brothers Records, 3300 Warner Boulevard, but they also distributed for Metal Blade and Sire and Quest and Paisley Park. And so, I mean, it was like this amazing Morris Day and the Time, I mean, it was just all of these. I even have a Michael Jackson thing that was done very backdoor with people who are, I mean, some amazing stuff that's just kind of sitting there gathered. So it
sounds like getting your career started was like the be so good you can't be ignored kind of thing.
I was cocky. I always felt confident in production skills. The voiceover part was like, I knew that the studio, that would be like the annuity. That was the thing I could count on, that even if I wasn't there, I could get people come in, And then the voiceover stuff, someone had told me there was an open audition at Hanna-Barbera. That was back when Gordon Hunt, for all you people, Helen Hunt, who was in Twister, that was her dad. And all the big directors out there, and Chris Zimmerman and Colette, that were all his assistants at Hanna-Barbera. Yeah. And so I wrote a script. I'd never auditioned for anything. I'd done a lot of voice stuff, but I'd never... So I wrote this thing, now we'll have to.
You were never just the talent.
No. Yeah. It was crazy. So I didn't know what I was doing, and wrote this thing flying around all over the, I'll have to find the great note of stuff. Great. Yes. No. I think they thought I was on crack. And they went, do you have an agent? I went, no. And they went, get an agent. We'll have you out here working. So I called Don. He went, yep, I'll sign you right now. Pitts. So I remember sitting in his office and watching Gary Owens and Mel Blanc and Orson Welles, all these guys walking in going, God, this is so cool. I'm never going to work. This is cool. I mean, these guys.
So you got to watch all these
amazing
legends in person and watch.
And even probably one of my favorite stories studio-wise was I was in on a very last session with Paul Frees, who still had this magnificent voice, Paul, for all those you don't know, the voice of Haunted Mansion and all that stuff. And I loved it when they went, Paul, if we could just get you to do a pickup on this. And
or is it just an imagination?
Yes. And he went, for the other actors, it may be a pickup. For me, it's an encore. So it's been a very storied past, but it's been a hell of a ride. Absolutely.
So the studio, you started Mark Graue Productions. That was
recording. Yeah.
Recording. Did you start that as a result of you always wanted a studio? Was that really your first love with production?
Actually, what happened was I was at Cherokee, and and this was, I remember almost knocking Pat Benatar down when I went in, but it was Motley Crue and Ozzy Osbourne and Roy Thomas Baker was the producer for the Cars and Journey, and I mean, it was crazy, and it was cocaine and all that, just like you think a music studio would be back then. Mm-hmm. They decided, and I was in charge of Studio 5 when they hired me, which is a media studio, so they wanted to start doing radio spots, TV spots, syncing stuff. And they realized they could make a lot more money back then, like doing a lockout with Rod Stewart for 6 months, because that's when big budgets were still. Oh, yeah.
Those days. Yeah.
And so they ended up saying, we're going to let you go, basically. And it was like, oh boy. And I have no idea how, fast talking, whatever. I talked them into selling me Studio 5 with zero credit. So I have this, was in the shittiest part of East Hollywood off of, I'm trying to think of where, Prospect. And so it's just this behind a Yugoslavian landlord with a come out and, Mark, your cat's in my yard. What are you doing? It's what are you talking, And so literally half the house was a studio. I mean, the console was good, 10 feet long, and I had a bank of reel-to-reels in back and all of that stuff, and started there and took off enough that I actually was able to go into my first commercial building, which was on the corner of Hollywood Boulevard and Gramercy Place, East Hollywood, which was a terrible, terrible section. I actually made friends with all the transvestite hookers because they were loyal. They would watch the place at night. So I'd slip him, $20, $40. Hey, how you girls doing? Great. Da, da, da. A great story. I had a guy out from
They were
New
your
York.
eyes. They were your eyes on the block.
Yeah,
they were always there.
And they were wonderful. And so I had a guy out from New York. I was trying desperately to impress with the studio. And let's go get some coffee. We're walking up to the corner, and here's all these transvestite hookers that go, hey, Mark. And he's looking at me. I'm going, no. It's not what you think it is. It's like, surprise.
We're only business partners. No, I mean, I don't mean in that way. I mean, a totally different kind of business. I mean,
Exactly.
I'll tell you later.
But I can tell you the Hollywood image of a hooker and what it really is, these are two different planes of existence.
Exactly.
But anyway, so that's kind of how it started.
First studio. And then the one that I think of, because it's the one that I've been to and visited, the one that's still running in Burbank. When did that one? That's the big show.
The big reason. Well, that moved. I doubled in size in Hollywood, tripled in size, but it was a storefront, and it got pretty rough. It was. I mean,
the location was not a.
Julie Andrews walking in and this guy is grabbing his willy. Go, hey, bitch! It was like, oh god,
oh no, this can't be happening.
And she just was so classy, just kind of waved it off. But at that time, the city tax, LA city tax, it was like 8.5% of your gross. And obviously what a studio grosses and nets are like two different planes of existence.
Yes.
And it was like, this is insane. So when I first looked at the building out in Burbank, where it is now, that was the home of Stereo Vision. And Stereo Vision was the one that did all those cheesy 3D guerrilla movies and all of that. So when you walked in, he had like rocket ships on strings, and then the guy was just out and walk around. It was just this like big warehouse with weird stuff all in it.
They were C movies.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's giving them the benefit of the doubt. These were like, probably RRS, And and looked and went, this is a possibility. And so started and out there and literally one of my huge big clients back then was Dove Audio, doing audiobooks. And this was still 1/4-inch tape. So you'd have 1/4-inch things stacked in the hallways and stuff to edit, because you still had to manually, you really hone your skills doing that and get very quick. Literally within a week of moving in, they went, we built our own studios. And I'm like, oh shit.
No.
And so that's when you realize you kind of had to branch out a little bit and do some other stuff. And it's been there now over a little over 40 years, which is crazy.
Incredible.
Yeah.
It's just incredible.
And it's
what
five studios, now in a big, so it's been but that was like when Fred Jones was the main competition and,
right.
That way.
Well, it just shows how incredible you are at pivoting and thinking on your feet. And I'm in that position, like where I'm watching the voiceover business that I built my business on, having, let's just say, less demand on my time as things change, and so I've been finding myself needing to find new niches and new verticals. Sure. All the buzzwords of the industry are.
And the funny thing is too, I think where we're at now, we'll look back in 20 years and go, really, that's what we were doing? I mean, it's pretty staggering. I mean, I go back to, when the first digital stuff came out, I remember I was mastering Warner Brothers programs on a Roland DM80, 8 tracks, it was like, ooh. And I think, the drive was like this massive, huge thing. And it was like 4 gigs or something. It was, we'll never run out of room.
Exactly. I remember how much I paid one time to recover a 4 gigabyte hard drive in my dad's PC when I lost some projects, the drive crashed. And I think we paid $1,200 to recover.
Oh yeah.
4 gigs.
They used to do all of these Warner projects when they moved it. I used to do a thing every month with them called The Guide, which was all their new artists, and we do interviews and stuff. And that was also, we do it for movie theaters as well. So to tie that in. But they had the old Sony PCM, what was that, the 33, 4, whatever those were. You'd spin, where the remote was like, 4
was that the reel-to-reel Sonys?
No, it was the first, it was the digital, but they had the thing would just crash constantly, and the knobs were like this big, and you spent more time just hanging out and playing pinball and waiting for them to figure out what was wrong with it. It was just.
So you mean when Pro Tools came along, it crashed less often?
So yeah. Well, the big one back then for people was Sonic Solutions.
Yeah, I learned on Sonic. I learned how to master and burn CDs on a Sonic Solutions system.
Sure. And I mean, now it'd be like, huh?
Right. And it was expensive. I mean, for us, it was like a $70,000 package.
I remember Fred Jones was a huge thing. They went to Fairlight, and I think they bought like 4 of them. It was like, holy, I mean, those the same thing. They were like, I don't know, 70, 80 grand a pop. I mean, it was like, my God, you'll never.
What's weird is the spiritual successor of Fairlight still exists. And now it's a free thing that's built into another application that is owned by Blackmagic. So now if you want Fairlight, you just download,
How crazy
I think it's
is
called
that?
DaVinci. Download DaVinci Resolve, and by the way, we throw in Fairlight for free,
which is crazy. Yeah. So so there was a big learning curve, obviously, initially to that was like,
unbelievable. So you're having to learn the new tech because that's what clients are probably starting to expect. And at the same time, you're trying to stay productive, keep up the productivity. So you've got one foot in analog and one foot in digital for like, I don't know, a number of years, right?
Yeah, it was that. The hard thing, too, was finding engineers would come in and tell you how incredibly capable they were. I remember one time handing a session off to an engineer. He may even still be around. I don't know. It was Deke. And they were, everything was fine. This was when it was still center track time code. So it's analog with a center track time code. And they all came running out going, God, fuck you. We'll never come back to this fucking studio again. Fuck you. And it was like, what? And it was like, a knife in the heart. It was like, oh my God, what happened? And I guess it didn't go well and wasn't locking. And what happens if time code at that point wasn't continuous, it would reach that point and all the rails would go wee and just start taking off and spinning. And it was, it's like, holy shit. And everybody went nuts. And it was like, there was no way to stop it. You couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. It was a
serious pressure.
Oh my God. It was a mess,
So you must have learned pretty quickly who could deal with those situations, work through them, that were good pressure under fire type people, right? I mean, you can't tell what they're going to be like until you throw them into the fire, right?
Well, as you know, too, that, voiceover is a really, really different style of engineering, just a very different than mixing music. I mean, you really have to think on your feet. You have to be creative. You have to think about effects and all that kind of stuff if you're mixing spots. And even if you're doing narration, how to do, sound on tape and using interviews and that kind of stuff to make it fit and seamless and so it doesn't, and I still run into that with you have engineers who go, yeah, but look, it's like, don't look at it, listen to it. Yeah, but you're looking, no, but see the wave and I don't care about what it looks like. Listen, you're missing like a half a beat and it's like, so that's kind of
your ears.
And it's like singing. There's some people that have that and there's some people that just don't ever completely embrace that.
It doesn't work. So I would imagine, of course it does, but how do you think all that, your actual voice work?
Well, I think you have a lot more appreciation for what they're going through.
Yeah.
But I think, relying again, definitely like voice matching. I would go in and just nail this thing and then play it back to, the engineer and go, no, please don't send that. It's not even close. So, but relying, and then you kind of bring people in and train them to what you're used to doing, to kind of going a little above and beyond to make something that it's not just, it's like even with a demo, to me, it's like it's telling a story. It's almost like you're scoring a movie. It's got to be just the right thing. Sometimes you may use 5 cuts of music on one piece, but it just flows and it just, it feels right. And you just go,
a short movie score.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe even a trailer almost.
Yeah.
But even then trailers tend to have one music piece mostly through them, don't they?
Pretty much. I mean, I go back to, Don LaFontaine. We used to do all those crappy Steven Seagal movies together.
Sure.
Out for vengeance, kind of stuff. I still remember they used to they just send Don and a kid over because they knew we were friends and knew what we were doing, knock on wood. And so he goes, let's mess with this kid. So it's
I didn't know you were doing that.
Oh, so the kids go, John, if I could just get you a little, just not just a hair more smile, because you want smile, hire fucking Mark Elliott,
So you were,
Disney's most endearing character. So at that point, there's like a puddle of pee under the table. It's like nonstop. The kids could have a heart attack.
I know. Well, when I first started working with Don in his home studio, I didn't know who the hell he was. I wasn't the Googling guy. I wouldn't, when someone said, go help out Don, my friends, did you ever know Steve Nafshin by chance?
Steve
Nafshin. He was with Woodholly for many years, and then he was with DG.
Okay. Right.
And so anyway, he referred me to Don, and he said, Don's got issues with his audio. There's a buzz in the audio, and he's always calling me, and I can't help him. I'm at the desk, and you go help him out. I'm like, all right. So I go to his house, and I get to this concrete and steel fortress, and I'm like, holy smokes, who the hell is this guy? And then he comes to the door, and he's like, hey, let's go downstairs to the studio. And we go down to the studio, and I'm like, holy smoke. And we go in there into his room, and then he sits, and he's like, hey, just a second, I gotta record this quick. And I hear the Zephyrs go beep, beep, And I'm just like, and he walks in there and he goes, The Simpsons. And I'm like, oh my God, that's who the hell this guy is, right? And then so for the next year, working with him, just doing tech stuff and renovating the studio and bringing it into the 2000s because everything was, and I was 15 years old.
Oh yeah.
I was so nervous, like, because this guy was like a god, right? But then I started working with him on personal projects, videos. He loved editing, cutting videos of his family. And I'd sit there watching a video of his kids, and he'd sit there watching, and I'd see this tear roll down his eye, like,
oh yeah.
And I'd be like, oh my God, this is who this guy really is. So then I got to really become friends with him, and we worked together on some stuff.
But there's really a neat history. I mean, it's that whole. I think the voiceover industry, and even you try and explain that to people now. Like, we were basically like voiceover gypsies. I mean, you'd actually go to a casting director or to the buyer. All the agents had a booth director if they didn't have multiple booths.
Voiceover gypsies.
You'd kind of see the same guys everywhere.
Yeah.
And it was great. There was a camaraderie, and it was a wonderful kind of time, and it was all of the Steve Susskind and Dave Madden and all these names that you wouldn't you don't regulate. You'd go, oh my God, yes. I just it was amazing, and then through that, Dave became a really, really good friend, and actually was my best man at my wedding for my years and years ago, which I since got divorced. My wife passed away, so that's a whole other story. But we used to have these incredible lunches at the Magic Castle for about 22, and it was oh my gosh, it was Dave Madden and Jonathan Winters and Pat Buttram or Pat McCormick and Dom DeLuise and Bob Ridgely and Steve Susskind, and I mean it was crazy.
All of you guys at the Magic Castle.
Oh yeah. And it was really, it was just an amazing. Robin Williams, was up there all the time doing, and it was bad jokes, and everybody would just go blip, 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 blip. We'd have every Friday. We had the Houdini room, and so it was just. And I mean, it was an absolute. I was like the kid. These guys were old enough to be my dad or grandparents, and it was just you could keep up, and it was just we had to go to each other's houses at Christmases and all that kind of birthdays. It was really special.
So now your life is doing a balance of voiceover work and production, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I've pulled back considerably. I still have my place in LA, but I have a place in Florida that I bought in this nice little. It's called New Smyrna. It's almost it reminds me. It's very reminiscent of a surf town in like the 50s or 60s in LA, in California. Mm-hmm. It's that small, all mom and pop stores. They don't allow box. You can drive on the beach and sit and down. And I just have that kind of come to. Even though I was born in Hollywood, raised there, actually at Queen of Angels. My dad used to anchor news and all that stuff at Channel 5. Grew up on the lot there. It's just it's changed dramatically, and it's kind of nice to have. I think you need something to feed yourself, and especially as you get older, it's like, okay, so is there another chapter here?
What's important to you changes? It changes. Your priorities change.
And I had that. I had a session. Geez, I think it was at like Lime in Santa Monica. My place is in Old Town Pasadena, and it took 3 hours and 27 minutes to get home. And I went, this is stupid. This is just like. This is ridiculous. It's like, why am I doing this? Yeah. And so here it's a much different, down to the beach, the food's wonderful. It's wonderful. Got an incredible amount of friends, but it's not business at all, which is a very nice, as you know, it's kind of a nice change.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's nice. I mean, it's just, and I think you need that blend. Absolutely.
And what are you doing? What are you doing more of nowadays? Are you doing voicing as much as production? Yeah, I still, studio, still is doing a lot of production, that kind of stuff and leaning, but Andy's running that pretty much, which is, was the whole point. Yeah.
And doing, I've got Source Connect here, and I've got, a 416 and a 103 and all this stuff with Apollo that you helped me set up and all that good stuff. So I find myself doing quite a bit, actually more voiceover stuff now probably than I was doing, just because I'm more available to do it.
That's nice.
But it's really interesting. Like, we just went on a trip to Europe, which was wonderful in September. It's the first time out of my entire career I didn't take anything with me. I didn't take a rig. I didn't take, and it was awesome. Well, but it was like, nope, they can either do it when I get back, or I don't care.
Good for you.
And sometimes you really, because we all know, well, okay, it's Christmas Eve. Well, how long would it take? How much?
Right. I know.
And we all
do those credit card bills.
Yeah, exactly. It was just really, really freeing to go, no, I'm not going to do it. I don't care. And it was awesome. We
awesome.
Oh God, learned how to cook out on a farm in Italy, out in the middle of nowhere, and went up where they shot The Godfather, and way up in the mountains, and did all kinds of neat little toury things. It was really good. It was great. It was just, and that kind of stuff just feeds the soul. It's like, and you really need that. Absolutely.
You do. So
sure. Oh yeah, absolutely. I do that, and quite a bit of voiceover coaching, with people, getting them, kind of, and realizing what it is, and because the industry has changed considerably. I think really everybody really upped their ante, especially with COVID. I mean, home studios went, where it used to be your crappy USB mic, and it was like, I'm ready to go, and now people are, have definitely, and Apollo is really quite an amazing thing for cost, et cetera. I mean, that's really come leaps and bounds. Oh yeah, there you go.
Laying around.
Sure, and they're ridiculous. I mean, it's amazing. They do all the DSP before it goes into the computer, and you have all these amazing plugins that would have cost you thousands and thousands of dollars if it was outboard gear.
Faithful representations of outboard gear, racked things that would need, to be recapped and, retubed, make heat and warm up.
I've still got at that studio, the war chest of old, it's like the equipment graveyard. I've got even the old Viper.
I have an equipment graveyard of Zephyrs. I have every popular model of Zephyr is on this shelf.
Hey, ISDN might come back.
There's a whole bunch of them on eBay for $50, and I'm like, what's the bottom that are they going to start saying, we'll pay you $20 to take my Zephyr?
But you used to have all that stuff too with it. Oh, well, we've got a CDQ Prima. Oh, well, that doesn't work with it. It's like, so you'd end up having, an equipment room that has everything in it, so you could, patch this to this if you had all of that stuff.
That's the one piece of gear in my museum I don't have yet, is one of those purple and yellow. Is that the CDQ Prima? I think it's purple and yellow.
Yeah.
Like, I need one of those ugly things on my shelf, as part of the museum, man. Well, I love chatting with you. I've owed you a chat for a long time, and it's just been great to catch up with you.
Yeah, too, buddy. Absolutely. It's just nice to, I need to catch up over a beer or something here one of these days.
I know. Well, Florida is not that far away, and I go there a couple of, at least once or twice a year for one reason or another. So we'll have to catch up. I
just find myself, it's harder to go back to LA now, even though that's where I'm from. It's like, I don't want to go. I want to, it's like,
when you're in a place you're happy with. I mean, I've been here 21 years now. I feel like I've put in my time here.
Yeah,
I really do.
The funny thing is that it's just like when I was growing up, it's Hollywood Boulevard. All of that was still that magical that you'd think it would be, and it's not that at all anymore. It's and there's so many people. It's like going to Disneyland with no quotas. You'll get on the ride, but it'll be around September.
It's very true. It's very true. Well, it's been fun, and if anybody does want to work with you, where should they go?
You can just key in my name, obviously, anywhere on the internet, MARCGR, or the website is actually MARC-GRAUE.com, which is a weird GRAUE. Somebody actually asked, is that a stage name? It's like, yes, I wanted something no one could pronounce or spell. I mean, it's like,
exactly.
So it's just, but it's just Mark Graue. And I do a lot of one-on-one stuff. And just, for me at this point, it's more like paying it forward. I've been very blessed and lucky. I have the house that I have here is all paid for. It's mine. I don't have to share. I have a girl, but it's like, so if girlfriend gets mad, it's okay. It's still my house. So which there is a nice thing to that, especially after I've done that twice and it wasn't my house anymore. So
I get it. Well, that's great, man. Well, hopefully some people will be in touch with you, but always a pleasure. And do you still maintain a reel or a library of outtakes and reels of?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. In fact, if you ever call the studio and get put on hold, it's all outtakes, which is kind of we just thought that'd be a fun thing to do with. So and I have a lot of people that go, no, don't pick up the phone. Put me back on hold.
Yeah, trust me, you guys. Go to the website and check out all the great reels and outtakes. And Mark's own really funny series that you do. Voiceover and you.
Well, there's that, and then there's becomes voiceover man. Hello, I'm voiceover man.
And voiceover man.
Yeah, that's a whole nother,
check out all that stuff. It is highly. But my favorite is still voiceover you, because you do that. What's that? Is that called the Mid-Atlantic accent?
Yeah, voiceover and you. It reminds you of venereal disease and you. If you want to be safe, don't pull your willy out.
You need that out of alignment 16 millimeter south.
Exactly.
That's what you need on there.
Exactly.
Oh man, always a pleasure. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, buddy. It was really what fun to catch up with you, brother. Absolutely. It's really good to see you, man.
George the Tech.